How you doing? And today my title for my speech is the Formula Guide for Becoming Rich Over Time. I do have a quick question for you guys. Actually, it's an important question. By a show of hands, who here wants to be rich? Not you? Oh, that sucks. I'll let you be the first person to pass these out then.
Thank you.
All right, no problem. And I guess to start, I've always wondered why, I guess it seems as the richer get richer, the poor gets poorer, and middle class seems to be shrinking. This is something that we will find the answer of today, or concerning today, but first I do want to share some financial terms to you guys just to keep in mind. Concerning the paper that each of you have, I guess to start, we do want to start with the term cash flow. Cash flow is actually the money that you bring in. The next term is expenses, which is the money you spend. And the next term is assets, which is something you own. I do want to say really quick, though I have the first term of assets, I do want to say that concerning assets in general, in the 1990s, among a series of books called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, there was a revised definition of assets, which will be the definition we'll be using today. The revised definition of assets, it should be on each of you guys' paper, is something that actually pays you over time instead of something that you own. So with that being said, one more term that we do have is liabilities, which is something that actually costs you. As an example, a house is typically viewed as an asset, but can anyone answer if it can actually be a liability as well? Or could it only be an asset, owning a home?
It's too expensive. It's too expensive.
If
you can't afford it, I mean, then it's a liability.
Well, if you actually own a home, if you have possession of the home, can it only be an asset, or do you think it can be a liability as well? I'll answer that for you. It can be a liability. It actually can. If you're constantly repairing the home, or if, for example, you have a mortgage, which is an actual home loan, your house is an asset not to you, but it's actually an asset to your banker because it pays him or her on a monthly basis instead of yourself. Remember, the term asset is a more modern revised term, which is something that pays you over time. With that being said, your house will be an asset to you when it actually pays you, like stated before in the revised definition. For example, if you buy a house and you rent it out, so I guess it pays a positive cash flow each month after expenses, then it's considered an asset because you're actually receiving income from the home instead of the home just being there after you purchased it. So that's when it would be considered an asset. What I would want to briefly do, just briefly, is explain to you the mindset of each type of individual financially within different financial brackets. To start off, we will take a look at the characteristics of a financially broke person. Just to elaborate on that, they aren't necessarily poor, but these type of people do live paycheck to paycheck. Most importantly, they do a thing that we call buying stuff, quote unquote. With that being said, stuff, I guess, basically means to, on payday, what they would do is basically buy things that they don't have an essential need for, or it basically doesn't have a true value after being purchased. Basically, cash flow comes in and then it goes straight out the expense bracket when considering the definition of expenses. Financially, broke people never really educate themselves on assets and liability. This is something that they 9 times out of 10 don't have a true education on and don't really understand. The problem is that their cash flow never produces or creates more cash flow, which keeps them at a standstill, living continuously paycheck to paycheck, which at the end of the day, nobody really wants to do. Creating wealth isn't a magical mystery. A lot of people, tend to think that, rich people have this, secret thing going on. You don't have to sell your soul or anything like that to become rich. Everybody has the potential to be rich and wealthy over time. Everybody. It doesn't matter what background or circumstance you come from. It's basically a formula. The only reason someone doesn't create wealth is because, one, either they don't know the formula, or two, they actually don't apply the formula. With that being said, let's just take a brief insight on how middle-class people spend in general. really quick. On one side of looking, you would mistakenly think that the middle class are rich, but realistically they're not. Yes, they do typically earn a six-figure income, and many appear rich, but it is what they buy with their money that keeps them prisoners of middle class. What they typically buy are liabilities as defined in our term section. By buying liabilities, the money gets pushed straight out of their expense column as an outcome. Liabilities are things such as cars, houses, airplanes, credit card debt, etc. Just things of that such which are labeled as liabilities. There's a reason why this happens. For example, if a middle class person gets a nice paycheck on a monthly basis of about $10,000, they would actually split down, this person that receives that income would actually split down the middle their monthly expenses by paying about $5,000, meaning they would have $5,000 left. And usually the other half, they would do things such as maybe buy a new car. The car costs will be about $5,000 down. After insurance and maintenance, that car costs about $1,100 new every single month. So basically on top of the extra expenses that you do have. A few months go by, then they might want something like a boat on credit, then maybe a Rolex on credit, and eventually maybe a vacation home on credit, and just things of that such in general. And before you know it, their liabilities have risen their expense level to near or above their income level. This in turn means that they have to go to work and make a certain amount every single month just to cover their liabilities. With that being said, the financially lower class and middle class, when you think about it, they kind of share common grounds. They have some type of relation. The issue that they both have normally is all of their cash flow depends on their efforts, their work. When thinking about it, if they don't work, they don't make money. It's just plain and simple. This creates a huge disaster and dilemma in their lives if something happens such as losing a job. Basically, there won't be any income after that. So they both kind of share that in common, which means in turn that they must always work, in turn having little to no time for other things in their lives due to how costly it would be to take time off work. So a lot of times these are the type of people in the middle class and the lower class that don't have time to do much. If you want to maybe go out, have a dinner date, go play golf, anything, they really don't have much time to do that because they can't risk taking off work because they have liabilities that must be paid for, and the only thing that can take care of that is their occupation. With that being said, on the surface, life is pretty good for the middle class, but in reality, it's truly a roller coaster ride. Finally, let's take a look at how the rich people spend. Rich people, what they do, I guess compared to other people, is they acquire assets. Again, assets is something that pays you, something that puts money in your pocket after being purchased or after being invested. If you want to become rich, buy assets to earn you more money. It's as simple as that. The money cycle would be something like this. Acquire assets that produce cash flow. Invest the profits to acquire more assets that produce cash flow. Invest those profits to acquire more assets that produce more cash flow. It's a continuous cycle. The rich spend their money and acquire things that produce more money. It's plain and simple. I have a list of assets here that actually do produce more money, just as certain ideas to give out. Investments are the obvious ones, stocks, bonds, real estate, things of that such, which are investments. But please beware, you guys, that it has been stated by people such as Sean Carter, also known as Jay-Z, and others such as Warren Buffett, that you should never invest beyond your own means of knowledge. If you don't know anything about stocks and bonds, and you don't know anything about investing in real estate and things of that such, then you shouldn't get into it, plain and simple. Because if you don't know about it, 9 times out of 10, you won't succeed in it. So why invest your money inside of something like that? With that being said, education is another asset. If you learn how to do something that produces more money to you, and actually attempt to do it, that is technically buying an asset. Another asset is something that we call, quote-unquote, cash generating opportunities. This will create a type of passive cash flow, which means once you build it up, the money continues to flow whether you're still building it or not. So the money will always generate no matter what you're doing. If you're not attending to it, it doesn't matter. An example of this would actually be if you bought a pinball machine. It's just an example. You put the pinball machine in a barbershop and you don't spend any of the profits. You save it until you can buy another pinball machine, and then you put in another pinball machine at another barbershop. By the way, this is something that Warren Buffett did, one of the richest men in America. This is his beginning business that he started off with, and he basically put different pinball machines in different locations, and that's how he started his business to become rich over time. So you can start low. It doesn't matter, how much you have to invest in the beginning, but the key thing to remember is take your profit and always invest in more assets to acquire. And basically, on a personal level, I'm starting out on my journey to become rich, and I'm just starting out. And one of my investments that I do have is a kiosk DVD machine that I have invested with another person. These type of machines actually cost between $3,000 and about $7,000, depending on which type that you want and which type you're interested in buying. It would take, I guess, approximately, when thinking about it, they said it would take approximately almost about 2 years to get your money back from what you've invested into it. So it's really not something that's strenuous. I mean, when you think about it, you have patience over time, you get your money back. Another 2 years, it'll be just profit from there. You'll just continue to make money regardless of if you're attending to it or not. Maybe slight things such as maintenance might occur, but that's just to a minimum. Another thing that I am actually adding to my investments at this time is selling limited edition shoes online. And what this does is basically just taking exclusive shoes and selling them for a better price online and basically getting for a cheaper price. So every profit that I make, I can buy better shoes, buy more shoes, and over time I've acquired a large lump sum of different type of product that I can sell and continuously make product off of, and eventually I'm not even spending my own money. So I'm not working for money, but money is actually working for me in the long run. These are little things that we can do which doesn't take a lot of investments and doesn't take a lot of effort, that can really generate money and income over time. Just really quick, to conclude, we must come to realize that there is enough wealth to go around for everyone. For some reason, there's this cliche or there's this idea that goes around that, money doesn't grow on trees and not everybody can be wealthy, not everybody can be rich. It's not true. Each and every one of us has an opportunity to become wealthy and rich. We just have to be creative in our own way. I believe no matter where we come from, what background that we have, we all have potential to become rich in our own creativeness. Remember, the key thing to keep in mind is that broke people buy stuff. Middle class people buy liabilities, and the rich acquire assets. It's the biggest thing we must keep in mind. If we can keep these things in mind and we can choose what the path that we want to be, if we want to be middle class, if we want to have liabilities, if we want to be rich or we want to acquire assets, it's up to us. At the end of the day, it's really choice. So with that being said, we see opportunities all around us on a daily basis, and by keeping this formula guideline in mind, you too can excel financially beyond your wildest dreams. Thank you.